rap music is largely dominated by corporate influence and watered-down lyrics, so it's rare to see a popular hip-hop artist with a message of raw truth. His name's Felipe Coronel, better known as Immortal Technique. Felipe is a Peruvian-born, Harlem-raised hip-hop artist and social activist, known for his radically political lyrics criticizing everything from the drug war to the military-industrial complex. Well, Immortal Technique joined me earlier in studio, and given the fact that one Immortal Technique album carries the same punch as an entire Howard Zinn book, I first asked him to break down his process of writing music.
I had a room in my house where I wrote all over the walls, and it literally looks like a madman lives there. And like literally everywhere on the wall. One side of the wall is the martyr, and the other side is the middle passage. And it's just written ideas that don't mean anything to anybody else except me. It's like shorthand writing, you know? So I think it's a complicated writing process. There's sometimes when I'll write a song, like for example, a Caught in a Hustle, which took me about an afternoon, or Bin Laden. Those songs took me about an afternoon. And then there's a song like You Never Know, which took me a couple of years to write, or Dance with the Devil, which took even, you know, around the same time.
In your song, A Cure, I wanted to read some lyrics for our audience. Capitalism is a religion that makes Satan a god, teaches self-righteous people to embrace a facade. I wanted you to expand on what you meant by that.
Well, I think I was making a reference to the fact that when you think that everything in this world revolves around money and that you can monetize anything or everything's for sale, then it's hard for me to look at you as a person of faith. You know, I think that people hide behind faith so they can get their economic agenda completed. But it strikes me as very difficult to consider a person that has love and God in their heart when every single action of theirs is built on trying to monetize something, not so people can get paid, but so they can make money from things like water and air. And I think that what's difficult for people to process is that this is going on within their soul right now, or their life, or however they choose to see their spiritual struggle or their physical struggle. This is going on within all the people that are watching this program right now. Everyone has some sort of choice to make. I think the difference is that when people that are in power make choices, it affects people differently.
Iraq's elections were this week. Barely anyone noticed. You've traveled to another country ravaged by war that no one pays attention to anymore, in Afghanistan. You mentioned that you helped build an orphanage there. After talking to local Afghans on the ground, getting that perspective, what message do you think that they would want to send and relay to the U.S. government and the people here?
Well, I mean, I went there in 2009, where there were a huge amount of civilian casualties. There were drone operations. There were a lot of people that were very dissatisfied with the United States role. They feel like they did the same thing anybody else did when they came there, that they came there under the guise of stabilizing the region and stabilizing the country, the same way the USSR backed the government of Dr. Najib, saying, oh, we're going to have reforms, we're going to do this. And little by little do people notice, well, your reforms benefit corporations that you're making money with. You're taking natural resources out of the country. You want to control more and more things about our lives. Go harass your own citizens. Leave us in peace. And, you know, if you're not going to leave us in peace, then we're not going to fight you because we're the Taliban. We're going to fight you because you're in our country and we don't want you here anymore. And it's not your decision of whether you get to stay here or not. There's no threat here anymore. You know, Bin Laden has been annihilated. The threat that we have is now an inner threat in which, see, I think this is the part that people don't understand. You know, we have a new Star Wars movie coming out, and I always remember this one scene from Return of the Jedi where he's like, I'm sorry, from the Empire Strikes Back, where he's like, I don't want the Emperor's prize damaged. You'll test this machine on someone else. And I feel that's what Americans don't realize is happening, that we're testing this machine on other people. You know, human rights, civil rights, let's test it on immigrants. That way, people will say, well, they're illegal human beings. It doesn't matter what we do to them. We can put them in these internment camps. We can put them in these FEMA camps, as long as no, you know, well-to-do white American citizens are there for no reason other than speaking against the government. Oh, but it's okay for someone that works like a slave to do that and then have all their money confiscated, thrown into prison, ripped apart from their family. I don't think you see it. That's what my message is to them. You don't see what they're doing. They're testing it on people that aren't the perfect candidates. You know, people forget that Rosa Parks was not the first person to be ripped off the bus or to have that sort of that sort of incident, there was someone before, but people didn't, or the NAACP didn't think she was a quote-unquote perfect candidate.
Rosa Parks, I mean, of course she wasn't the first person, but of course the establishment wants you to believe that revolution is not a process, that it was just a moment in time. And Rosa Parks was that moment in time, of course, neglecting the years of struggle that went on before that moment, Felipe. Of course, the pretext for U.S. intervention in Iraq and Afghanistan, 9/11, hunt for bin Laden. I want to talk about your song, Bin Laden, because it really impacted me, Felipe. It says they funded al-Qaeda. Now they blame the Muslim religion, even though bin Laden was a CIA tactician. They gave him billions of dollars. They funded his purpose. Fahrenheit 9/11, that's just scratching the surface. What is your biggest question regarding what we've been told about that entire story?
I'd have to get back to you on that one, because there's not just one. I mean, there's way too many. But I think that overall, people feel like they got their tooth capped. That's it. You know, that there was some problem and that somehow it got fixed. And now this bad guy is going away. Ayman Zawahiri, MIA. I mean, you know, it's funny to see how serious we took al-Qaeda and how much of a threat they were to global stability, that we needed in some way, shape, or form to hunt each and every single one of those cells down and destroy them. And yet we had no problem when those cells existed in Syria to get rid of somebody that we didn't like. Now, obviously, it became a PR nightmare for the administration, for the country, for everyone, that we were giving people that were connected to that organization money. But at the same time, it's very exemplary of the length that not just this country, because I won't single out America, that any country is willing to go to. You know, I think that when we talk about internal struggles, it has to be spoken on that the United States is not the only empire that has had that. I mean, you don't know how many times I've had to talk to people, Abby, and tell them, hey, listen, you know, the war against Chechnya was not a handful of Muslim extremists against, you know, these poor white Russian people that were victimized. No, it was like as if the United States declared war against Florida and said, hey, we're going to invade you. And everybody in high school and college in Florida said, I don't want to be invaded. I'm going to join the military. We're going to fight. Yeah, and then we had a gigantic clash of people in which hundreds of thousands of people died. I mean, I think that this is a story that keeps getting told again and again and again. It's not just one system. It's not just one group of people. I think it's the whole idea that some men are more fit to rule over others, and that we have to conform all of ourselves to that agenda, that only some cultures are acceptable and others are deemed as savage and primitive, when we live in a very civilized and yet primitive society. We live in a very civilized and technologically advanced, yet barbaric society. So, I mean, I think unless we address those issues, and music is one way to do that. You know, Bin Laden was a song that I wrote where Green Lantern came up with the most electrifying hook that we possibly could. He got most in the studio, and then he was like, look, just fill the bars with nothing but facts. And that's what we did. We talked about how, you know, Saddam Hussein was the worst thing in the world. I mean, unless it was the time when Reagan was giving him weapons so that he could fight against Iran. I mean, I think that these things, these hypocrisies, when you point them out, give humanity a little bit more perspective and give them the ability to become more self-aware. And that's what we need.
It definitely does, and what's unfortunate is that just simply pointing out things that you just outlined, I've been attacked as a conspiracy theorist. I mean, simply mentioning the fact that the grand chessboard existed, as Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, I was called a conspiracy theorist in the mainstream media. And I know you've been called one too, and I think it's really important to address this pejorative term and get your response to it.
Okay, I was called a conspiracy theorist because on Revolutionary Volume 2, I made a series of claims, and I'm going to tell you them right now, Abby, so we can both laugh. I claimed that the federal government on Volume 2 was tapping all your phones and that they weren't listening. Listen to me, this is serious. I'm
sorry, it's already funny.
Hold on. I told you, my album came out in 2004, all right? I said, that's why the federal government is tapping your phone. People said, no, they're not. He's a conspiracy theorist. Okay, idiot number one, check. There we go. Number two, I went out and I said that I didn't believe the government's full story behind 9/11 and that they were holding something back. And it came out that they were holding something back, that they weren't telling people about the quality of the air to breathe and what chemicals were in the building. So the countless numbers of first responders died of some pulmonary disorder or another, a very, very tragic situation. I said that the war in Iraq, so that's another precedent that I told people would be set, and it was set. I told them that the war in Iraq was under false premise and false circumstances. The only person who still denies that to this day is Dick Cheney. He's the only one that thinks that there were still weapons of mass destruction there. And that's probably because, as the old jokes go, him and Reagan have the receipts. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is with people who don't like conspiracy theorists only because they're afraid that what they're saying might actually be true. And I think that's because those people that hate us the most are the people that really want change, that really want to do something, but they feel powerless. And they would feel even more powerless if they found out that what you were saying was actually true, because then not only would their suspicions about what's actually really going on be confirmed, but the other thing that would be confirmed is that they're too much of a coward to do anything about it, or that they're not capable of doing anything about it, or that they have all the courage in the world, but they just are physically incapable, or believe themselves to be physically incapable of doing anything about it. But they're wrong on every account. It's not that you're a coward. Everyone's afraid of the odds when they seem insurmountable. But when you face those odds and you're unwilling to just hang up your hat and say, it's too complex, it's too hard, you know, that's when you face your fears. You know, when you say, okay, this government's taking away rights from people, if I stand up for those people, I might lose my rights too. When you say it's worth it because if one of these people loses their rights, I know that I'm next. I know that my family's next. I know that other people that speak out against injustice are next. And if it's not done outright, it's done subtly first, until it's done outright.
Absolutely, man. I mean, of course, I love this country, and that's why I'm here fighting. I'll be here in the streets till I die, trying to make it better. Telling the truth is not a conspiracy theory. It's just such a cheap shot to shut down debate and critical thinking. Yeah.
I always told people, and they made it into like a little meme on Instagram. I said, don't call me a conspiracy theorist because I know more about this country's history than you do.
Oh, I love it. Felipe, we have 1 minute left. I wanted to say we're both going to be at United We Stand Festival. It's this amazing festival bridging together the left and right to providing alternatives to the two-party system. Why do you feel passionate about breaking the dictatorship of Democrats and Republicans? We have about 45 seconds.
Well, I would say that not all those people are bad people. I just think that the system needs to understand that we won't allow two parties that work for the same person to feed us the same lie again and again. Also, I've met people from the Democratic Party and people who are marginal Republicans who are very, very good people. And they do good things in terms of their service. Like they're pro-immigrant, they're pro-civil rights. But at the same time, I think that the country needs an alternative to just one gigantic system funded by corporations or another gigantic system funded by corporations. You know, I think that we need a voice of our own, a people's tribune, so to speak.
And thank you for being a part of that, Felipe.
Unfortunately, we don't have that.
We really don't. Thank you so much. Felipe Coronel, Immortal Technique. Amazing to have you on, man.
Thank you very much.
That's our show, you guys. Join me again tomorrow when I break the set all over again.
But all I see is lies coming out in your message. I keep it audacious, speaking the facts. We break the paradigm with truth intact. The people don't need to be fed propaganda, spoon-fed fabrications.